Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Messy Magic podcast, where we talk about the messiness of life and how through that messiness we can find the magic. Today, I've got a really quick one for you, just something to think about as you're going through your day, wherever you might be. I have been doing this meditation challenge over the past few days on Insight Timer, the app, which I highly recommend, by the way, if you are interested in meditation or you're into meditation and you haven't tried Insight Timer. It's free, or there's a free version. And they occasionally do these free challenges, and this one's been really good. And today's prompt or topic was talking about how we look after our physical bodies as opposed to looking after our mental well-being. And it prompted me to think about how I would look after my body if I was my own parent or if I was to look at my physical body as though it was a child. What would I do differently? And it's just a different perspective and a different way of thinking about how you look after yourself, I think. So for me, thinking about exercise and movement, and also thinking about what I put into my body, my diet, the food and drink that I consume, and whether I would do the same thing or recommend the same thing if my body was a child that was separate to myself. And so it's given me a few little things to think about. And even as I've moved through my day and eaten things and chosen what to eat at lunchtime and those kind of things, I've kind of stopped and thought, is this what I would recommend if I was looking after my body as though it were a child? And I did make a decision that was different on one occasion. And I will probably continue to do the same for the rest of the day. So I think it's a really useful thing to think about, and maybe just a little thing that you can do today is just to think about what kinds of things you would suggest or recommend or provide to a child if you were to look after their physical well-being. How would you recommend they move their body? And I guess if you're an adult, then physical exercise is going to be different for an adult as it were for a child. So the analogy doesn't quite work in that sense, because you wouldn't recommend to an adult the exercise, or to a child, you wouldn't recommend to a child the exercise that you would recommend to an adult. So the analogy doesn't quite work, but think about it as though you were looking after someone who was separate to you. What kind of exercise would you recommend to them, or movement? What does your body need today? Does it need to be more vigorous? Do you need to go for a run or go to the gym? Or does it need to be soothed a little bit? Would you do an online yoga class or just some gentle stretching? And then when it comes to diet, how are you looking after your health in terms of the food and drink that you consume? Could you maybe eat more fresh fruit and veg, more unprocessed foods as opposed to processed foods, limit sugar, caffeine and alcohol? And one thing that the practitioner did suggest in this lesson on Insight Timer was not to look at it as a diet. And I agree with this. I think whatever we choose to consume has to be sustainable. I'd rather make healthy choices on an ongoing basis, treat myself occasionally, than go on a diet and restrict myself, because I don't think that's sustainable. So think about what kinds of things, or just tiny little choices that you could make throughout your day that are just a little bit more healthy than maybe what you would normally reach for. So I hope this has been a little bit helpful, given you something to think about today. Just my daily challenge for the day. How would you look after yourself differently if it was a separate person that you were caring for? If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share it with a friend or a family member. If you think someone else could get something out of it, I'd love you to share it. That would mean a lot to me, and I'm sure to your friend or family member. I'd be so honoured if I thought that these little ideas that I have impacted positively on somebody else's life. So thank you again for joining me. I look forward to being with you again on the next episode. And in the meantime, have a magical day.